Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening to this from and at whatever time you're listening to it. Welcome to episode 3 of Lawyers with Stories. My name is Lisa, also known as Law Mom on LinkedIn. Okay, and this is my podcast, and today we are interviewing somebody that has a very, very rich story, and it might resonate with a particular section of aspiring lawyers and even those that are maybe still studying or even thinking about studying law, right? There's certainly a lot to be gleaned from her journey, and I'm sure that this interview will not do justice. Maybe we'll have to have her on again. Um, but I'm very happy to have her on the podcast. She'll introduce herself to you shortly. So the aim of this podcast, as it's titled, "Lawyers with Stories," it's meant to inspire, motivate, and encourage aspiring lawyers through the journeys and stories of other lawyers just like them. Okay, the aim is to humanize lawyers through their stories and remove the frills and the misconceptions, right? And that's something that I'm faced with and I hear about often because I deal with, interns in South Africa. We call them candidate attorneys. You know, in the UK they're called barristers. Here we call them advocates. I deal with pupil advocates as well who are in training, and you hear all of the misconceptions and of course the lot of assumptions that are made, stereotypes, you know, false attitudes that people go through their journeys with, in thinking that they are suited for the career, and often it leads to many issues, and I'm big on that, and within the profession, like just to mitigate the effects, people just to plan better so that their mental health doesn't suffer, um, and of course just to bust all of the myths, right, and the misconceptions um, that often leads to depression and people questioning whether they are in the right career, and whether it's even okay to give up, which we're hoping to normalize through this podcast, because my aim is also to get people that tried law and didn't like it. Okay, and some of you might be needing that extra encouragement to give up, which is fine. Giving up is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a very brave step that you take for yourself, right? So that's the whole, trying to say, vibe or ethos or feel of the podcast is just real lawyers, real stories, and of course talking about their journeys and taking it all the way back to being a law student and even the nuanced paths that they took to get to where they are today. Because if we are really honest with ourselves, we'll know that life is not a straight path. Okay, we might grow older in a linear fashion, right, from one year to the next, or we might progress in school from one grade to the next, or one standard to the next, or one class to the next. But in between, life happens, and sometimes we have, it's not straight. The path is not always the straightest, right? Um, so for this particular episode, what I want you to take away is that obviously your mindset is so important. The main part of that being that you have to know why you're getting into this career, and of course why you're choosing to study. And even though some of us might get into it for apparently the wrong reasons or misguided reasons, it's always fine to adjust those reasons, once we are in it, right? But of course, it's having that right mindset that will also keep you motivated to keep going when the going gets tough, right? The other takeaway is to curate your career path, but be prepared for detours, right? The third takeaway is about juggling other life roles with your career. The fourth takeaway is the importance of support structures during studies and during building your career. And of course, lastly, the vital role of mentors throughout your journey, right? Because we can never go through any kind of career progression, even going through life in general. Right? Sometimes we need a coach, we need a mentor, we need somebody to bounce things off, we need somebody who's been there before, gone ahead of us to be able to give us their wisdom, right? So I want you to be able to take away those points. Maybe some of it all might not apply to you, but those are the, I guess, the value adds that I want you to benefit from in this episode, right? So I'm going to introduce our guest, um, Kgalalelo Matabane. I got that right.
Indeed, you
I'm
did.
going to use her English name, which she has graciously given me permission to use. So her English name is Jennifer, but I thought I'd introduce you, with her traditional name because it's respectful to do so. And I'll just let her introduce herself to you without getting into too much of the details because we leave the juicy bits for the rest of the interview. But she can just introduce herself to you, what she's doing, where she's from, um, and we can kick it off in that way. So over to you.
Good morning, good day, good evening, everybody. I am Advocate Kgalalelo Jennifer Matabani, originally from Rustenburg, but I'm currently residing in Centurion, and I'm a mother to a 11-year-old baby girl.
Cool. I bet that's the most important job, right? If
Very
you didn't
important.
have the title, if you didn't have the fact that you put it there in that headline, and I think people that do that on LinkedIn, I have respect, because especially mothers, because that is just such. It's the hardest job in the world, but it's the most important, the most rewarding, because you're getting to train up a little human. You get that privilege. So I'm very happy to have you on the podcast, Jennifer. And I know from our pre-meets, I think it was back in February. I think I even told you there that I was really looking forward to this episode because I think that pre-meet was like a mini interview in itself, which just had so much of richness and nuances. And I mean, the fact that even being a single mother, you've navigated everything, and you know how you did it and the maturity with which you approached it. um, I just had a very good feeling that we are going to have a very, very useful interview, because I believe that, at least for myself, that my life is a resource. So in whatever area I have gained wisdom, I would like to impart that and make somebody else's journey easier. And I think that's the best way we can sort of pay it forward, or even just to talk about our journey. 'Cause I find it to be cathartic, talking about my mistakes and even the highlights and the good points. But of course, if it helps somebody, then I guess maybe that mistake was made with them in mind. Who knows, right? So I think we're gonna have a very, very good, useful interview, and of course, it's not just directed to single mothers, okay? Even though it will definitely appeal to that group. Because remember, Jennifer was, I guess she was a student as well, and she was a younger person, and not that she's old now. She was at one stage, I think older people forget that at one stage they were like young and they did stupid things. We kind of get too grown up as our age goes up in number. So she was once young, and we're hoping to dig into that part of her experience as well, because some of you might be law students or even on the verge of maybe law school, or admission exams, or even starting out your career, maybe as an attorney, or even as an advocate, a barrister in the UK, as they call it. And you can definitely pick, I guess, all my guests are like trees. You can sort of pick the fruit that, I guess, nourishes you for whichever stage of the journey that you find yourself in, right? Um, so I'm gonna ask Jennifer, maybe just give us a little bit of your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, matriculated, university.
Okay. So I was born and bred in Rustenburg. I grew up there, did my primary school in Rustenburg. Around 2006, I think I was in grade 6. My family relocated to Pretoria, and we stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. Moved back to Rustenburg after my parents got divorced in 2008. And then I did my high school at Kgalalelo Technical and Commercial High School. That's where I matriculated. I don't know if I should say unfortunately or fortunately, but then teenage pregnancy hit me.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I finished my matric, I was a homebody, so my mom didn't really allow me to go out, party, visit friends, and all those things.
Yeah,
So once I was done with my matric, she was like, "Okay, now you get a free pass. You can go and enjoy yourself."
yeah.
Bad decisions, and well, I ended up pregnant.
Uh-huh.
Initially, I had no intentions of studying law. It has never been part of my dreams. It has never been part of my plans. I've always
Okay.
wanted to be a chartered accountant. However, my grades in accounting were so bad. I even took extra classes, but accounting was just not favoring me. So
Yeah.
I decided I would study hospitality.
Okay.
So I went to my dad and I told him this is what I want to study. I've applied, they've accepted me. So he was like, not with my money. My dad is very strict and to believe that everything. So he was like, nope, you're
Yeah.
not doing that with my money. Advised me for this year, you'll need to find a short course. I don't know what you'll study. I don't care at this point, but you'll just do a short course for the year. Apply for something that is real, and then we'll take it from there. This is in 2013 before I actually found out I was pregnant. So I'm busy
Okay.
scrolling, trying to figure out what am I gonna study because I didn't even have an option B. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out what am I gonna study. And then I found out I was pregnant. So I told my mom, and she said, LB, those are your two options. That is what I'm paying for.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay,
Mm.
no problem. So then that's when I applied for my LLB. LLB was my first option. BA law was my second option. Somehow I decided psychology was my third option.
Mm.
Then I applied, and fortunately for me, I got accepted at the University of Johannesburg and the Northwest University in Mafikeng. Both my parents decided that the Northwest University was the better option for me because it's very far, it's very dull, there's nothing to distract me that side. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Northwest University, Mafikeng campus. But I am really grateful for them for making that decision for me because it really humbled me in a sense because there was no pressure. There is no what's the there's no lifestyle, like there's no pressure in you need to dress a certain way, you need to have your hair in a certain way, you need to be buying certain foods or driving certain cars. People, they just live a basic lifestyle. So I didn't have the pressure of saying I need, as much as I was okay, I didn't need to be calling home to say I need a new pair of sneakers because so and so
Yeah.
has it, or 90% of the student have those sneakers. I need to have it because
Mm.
as long as you got education there, that is all that mattered. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for them forcing me, in a sense, to go to a
Yeah.
place where I actually had to focus on my studies and nothing else. Because even
Yeah.
partying in varsity there was very minimal. Yes, we partied, yes, we went out, but it wasn't something that you would do and then you get distracted.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, and then I went to varsity there from 2014 to 2018. I completed my studies in July in 2018, and then I graduated in October 2018. Upon completing my degree, I moved back home. 3 months later, I got my employment with Pule Attorneys to be a candidate attorney. Fortunately for me, I didn't really struggle per se in finding articles.
Mm.
My strategy was that I'm not gonna wait for advertisements. So Rustenburg is not really a huge place; it's a small town. So
Mm.
I went on Google. I googled all the law firms there, took their email.
Mhm.
He told me, "Hey, pretty girl, but don't let that get to your head." So he told me, "You're very pretty, you're very beautiful. Men will look at you, you've got a nice body, but don't let that get to you because once you believe that those will work for you, they will actually destroy you." And he
Yes.
advised me that people will offer you better jobs because of your looks. They will offer you better opportunities, better salaries, and all those things. But not all of them are genuine. I'm not saying you shouldn't take any opportunity that comes that is better, but make sure that you're going onto the right path and the person who's offering it is genuine to you because you don't
Yeah.
want to be end up leaving this job, going to another job, and then someone is asking for sexual favors, and then now you're left without a job.
Yeah.
So on the first day of me going to work, this was what he said to me. And to this day, I've always had that in my head that don't ever put your looks before anything. Let your hard
Yeah.
work show the people who you are.
Mm.
So yeah, then I did my articles there. The firm generally practiced in everything: civil, family law, criminal, labor law, and estates. In my
Mhm.
first year, I did a bit of everything. Then, when I got my right of appearance for the regional court, I went to speak to my principal. I was like, I'm always inquiring about divorces, maintenance, children's court matters, adoptions, and all those things. I believe my
Mm.
passion is here. Can I only do this? So he's like, no, you can't only do this because and you won't be able to have experience in other things because not a lot of firms practice only in family law. So you need to have a
Yeah.
backup plan to see what if you're looking for employment and they say they only practice in civil and you didn't get the
Mm.
opportunity to do civil when you were a candidate attorney. So he did
Yeah.
say, no, you can do divorces, but you still need to do other things for you to have experience in those things, especially when it comes to the rules and procedures of it.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of divorces because that is where my heart was. But I did other
Yes.
things as well. And then I also wrote my board exams. However, I failed a couple of times. The struggle was very real. So
Mm.
after failing, I decided let me take a break from writing because obviously, as much as you can say you've studied and you keep failing, you get demoralized and you get depressed to say, but I know these things. I'm doing these things every day as I'm
Yes.
practicing. But when I'm writing them down, I'm failing. What is the problem?
Yeah. Yes.
So hence I decided to take a break from it because I felt like I know civil procedure. I do these things every single day, but when I'm putting it on paper, it's not the same thing. What is happening? What am I missing? Hence, I
Yeah.
then decided, let me take a break and regroup, and then I'll go back. And then I completed my articles in October 2020. Yes. Before COVID hit in 2021, my boss had informed me that if I wanted to stay, he's willing to keep me, but I would need to pass my boss because he can't keep me without me having any standing in the firm because now I can't even go to court. I don't have papers to go to court. So basically, I would be an office lawyer,
Yeah.
which I didn't like. I love being in the courtroom. I didn't
Mhm.
like just sitting in the office and consulting with people. So I decided, let me just look for another job because mentally I have decided on my own that I'm not going to write exams anymore because I felt like I'm pressurizing myself and I'm doing it because it's the route that everybody has to take. You do your articles, you write your boards, you get admitted, you become an attorney, the wheel goes on and on. So
Yeah.
at this point, I'm still trying to figure out what is there? What can I do with this degree? Is there anything I can do more with it?
Yeah.
And then I applied to the government. I applied to a lot of posts. In January 2020, 2021, I got an interview with the Department of Justice for a position of a maintenance officer intern.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even think twice, went for the interview. A week later, I was called. They let me know that I got the job. I packed my
Mm-hmm.
bags and relocated to Pretoria without even thinking twice. Mind you, I have a child.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as glamorous as it may sound that I just packed my bags and left because having a child entails you being attached to this person and you have a sense
Mm-hmm.
of responsibility to them. As much as when I had my child, I was 19, my parents both decided that they would take care of my child for me to go to school. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2014, a year after I had given birth. So my
Mm.
mom had all the burden on her to take care of my child because my baby daddy was in and out of our lives during that period. So my mom basically raised my daughter from 5 weeks because I left home in January. She was only five, not 5 weeks, 5 months. That's when I left home to go study. And when I came back, she knows me as a sister. Even to this day, she still calls me sister. But she
Wow.
knows now I'm her mother. But because of it's been she's been calling my mom and calling me sister.
Oh,
So it's still in her head. It's still sister that I'm mom. But she knows I'm her mom. She tells people I'm her mom, but she doesn't call me mom.
okay.
So yeah, when I had to leave, I had to sit her down and tell her, look, I need to move away again. This is for work. Unfortunately, I don't know where I'm going, what's gonna happen. So I can't take you with you because you can't just uproot a child and figure things out
Yeah.
with the child. My child already had stability at home. She had a loving home. My mom was there. My siblings were there. It was a homely home. So I can't just take her and say, let's go figure out life together. Yes, people were bashing me to say that why am I not taking my burden with me? But in a
Wow.
sense, I had support of my family. As much as people would always say, held a lot on social media just to protect her.
Yeah.
I don't do that. So when I do,
Yeah.
people are always like, you never with your child, you never post your child, all those things. And they believe I'm not being a mother to my child because I don't showcase me being a mother. When I moved,
Yeah.
even some of my family members behind closed doors, they were like wondering, why are you not moving with the child? Why are you not struggling with your child? Yes, I understand you can do that if you want. Me, I chose stability over struggles. I would rather
Yeah.
struggle on my own out when I'm okay and then pick up my child. But I will not put my child in a situation where we are left in a desert, there's no food, whereas she could have been home eating a home cooked meal with my mom, who is willing
Yeah.
and ready to do that for me.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that I had to struggle with a lot was the society trying to determine how I should be a parent, especially being a teenage mother,
Yeah.
what they expected you to do. Because even going to school, it was a lot of people were just bashing my mom to say she
Yeah.
fell pregnant at 19 and now you even paying for her to go to school. She's gonna bring you a second child.
Wow.
So
Uh-huh.
I had to fight to prove them wrong that she took a risk.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna disappoint her and come back with a degree of a child.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then life went on. I moved to Pretoria. I worked as a maintenance officer intern. amazing job, one of the jobs that I really, really enjoyed. However, it was a contract, so it was only for 2 years. I did try to speak to management to inquire if they would absorb me after the 2 years or what the procedure would be. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, so I started looking for alternative employment. In August 2022, I got a new job as a legal assistant in Fanton. Uh, Very tricky situation. That's when I realized that corporate is really not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I would survive working in a corporate world. Each to their own, I believe. So after a month of working in the company, I decided this does not align with what I want for myself. It does not align with the career plans I have for myself, and it even morally, it does not align with how I want to be treated or how I would want to see people next to me or close to me in a sense of colleagues being treated. Because I
Yeah.
know for a fact I can stand up for myself, but I can't stand up for everyone.
Yeah.
And then in terms of my admissions, my admission, I got admitted in July 2022. The reason I decided to get admitted as an advocate, like I said, I was working for the Department of Justice, and as a maintenance officer, you are limited to a specific role. So you only do the same thing every single day. But there are other
Mm-hmm.
aspects of maintenance, such as your criminal maintenance. And I wanted to venture into that. So when I was inquiring, they would say, no, you can go and do it. But remember, I'm not getting paid to do it. I was only getting paid to do my job. If I wanted to do it, I can do it just for the experience. So I
Yeah.
figured for me to up my game and level up from being an intern to being probably a maintenance prosecutor, because that is where I had started planning my life towards. After working there for about 6 months, I was like, this is where I want to be in the next year.
Yeah.
If I'm not a permanent maintenance officer, then I want to be a maintenance prosecutor because, like I said, I enjoy being in the courtroom.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, for me to be a maintenance prosecutor, I need to be admitted. So that's when I decided, let me get admitted as an advocate so that I can apply for this position. Because remember, in government, it's not like because you're already in as an intern, you automatically gonna get the job. You still need to apply like everybody else. You're still gonna go through the
Yeah.
interview process and everything. So then I got my admission in order for me to apply for a better opportunity in the government.
Okay.
However, my life changed during that process. So after getting my admission, this was in July 2022, and then in August, I had a job opportunity in Joburg, and then I left the Department of Justice to pursue that one, and it didn't work out. In October, end of October 2022, that's when I decided, you know what, I've got a degree, I've got admission. Why am I struggling to find a job? Because
Yeah.
all the jobs that I'm looking for, they say you need to have an LLB degree, you need to have 2 to 3 years experience, you need to be
Mm,
admitted. I have all those requirements, but they're not calling me for interviews. It was
mm,
very stressful and very draining process because remember, at that time I've never been unemployed. I went from varsity to being home for 3 months, which for me it wasn't really unemployment per se because I was just getting out of varsity. I didn't know what it's like being employed, what it's like lacking money because from varsity to home, I'm relaxed at home. Now I went to having 3 stable jobs to no job. So
mm.
I'm stressing, I'm constantly stressing on what's going to happen tomorrow. What will my future look like? I am constantly stressing about what will my future look like in terms of finding employment and working. But then things just did not seem to be, my apologies, things just didn't seem to be working in my favor because I
Yeah.
kept applying, but I kept getting rejection letters. People believe, okay, let me not say people, having a degree would get me the job.
Yeah.
Elisa?
Yes, continue.
Okay. And yes, that's how I started. And then I had to move back home because obviously finances were not on my side
Yeah.
back home so that I could make ends meet. Because, being an advocate, your invoices don't get paid as soon as you send them. You have to wait.
Yeah.
So I had rent that was due. I had a child that is in school. I had medical aids that I needed to pay. I didn't have the luxury of saying, month end, I'll pay, don't worry. And when it
Yeah.
comes to renting a place out, if you sign a contract to say on the first I'm sending the money, on the first they want their money. They don't care whether
Yeah.
you left your job or what, whether you send an invoice and you have it, they want their money. So it became very draining because now I was asking assistance from family. I was asking my mom to help me with the rent. I was asking my sister to help me with the rent. Any help that I could get, I was just asking. And for me, I felt like, okay, now I'm becoming a problem to my family. As much as they didn't mind per se, because they knew what I
Yeah.
was going through. But as a person, I was like, I can't keep asking and asking because they also have their own responsibilities, their own
Yeah.
kids. And my mom, on top of that, is taking care of. not a nice feeling. As much as you accept, oh, I failed the last time, it's not a nice feeling that you failed. You feel like you're a failure in life. You've done
Yeah.
4 years of LLB, you've done your law school, and now you can't simply write one exam. What's wrong with you? So that is how I felt at that point, that I'm failing. Maybe I don't deserve this law degree. Why was I able to get a law degree, but I can't get my board exams? So at that point, I
Yeah.
felt like it's too much for me. Mentally, I'm exhausted because I keep blaming myself. I keep blaming. I've never been one to blame other people for my failures. I was blaming myself to say, why did I not ask maybe for a week from my principal? But then the
Yeah.
reality is that there's work waiting for you. What are you gonna? Who's gonna be handling your work? Because there were three CAs at that time.
Yeah.
If I'm given a week, what about the others? So meaning the whole office has to close down because we are writing board exams. So those things, the reality of it was that I can't. I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally exhausted. Having to explain to my mom because my mom is waiting for me. She's like, "You say you've been studying. You say you're writing. Where's the results?"
Yeah.
So that pressure of it all came down to me, and I sat down with my principal and I told him, I think I'm gonna go into a depression if I continue writing my board exams. So I'm gonna take a break because I can't anymore. Because his thing was that every time we wrote exams, the next day when we got back to work, we would bring in our question papers and we'd discuss the question paper with him.
Yeah.
So I was like, I am done. I cannot do this anymore. I'm not writing. I know the conditions of my employment with you is that after 2 years, should have passed my exams and I would be absorbed in as a junior attorney in the firm. But then I don't have that. So he's like, no, it's your decision. We'll see when the time is right what we do. So he wasn't very hard on me per se, but he was like, you'll figure it out. You know what you want in life, you'll figure it out. And when you figure it out, you will let me know.
Yeah. I
So
mean that.
that's how I moved on from my pressure and anxiety of constantly writing but failing. So that is when I decided into, I think it was in 2020 when I stopped writing my exams.
Mm, I mean that whole. I mean what I. The whole resilience of going through the your dad's passing at university and your parents divorcing and that there's a difference between resilience and quitting, right? Resilience is where you go ahead, um, and you keep doing what you're doing, right? And then
Yeah.
quitting is also, I consider it a superpower because you also realize your limitations, and that's a when you came to your board exams and you had, I mean, it's clear you had the different strategies you were trying, right? Like, let me try it this way, let me try it that way. um and it didn't work. And then at that point you say, right, my health is failing, my I'm exhausted at work, I'm not productive. What is this all for? I think that's where a lot of students, even prospective CAs, they will ask, like, am I doing law for the right reasons, or why am I even doing this in the first place? And so coming to that point where you say, like, enough is enough. If I don't pass this, that's it. I think that's something that everyone needs to know, especially CAs that try and try and try and try. And I have to tell them that it's not them. They have not. It's not that they haven't tried their best, and that it's okay to actually throw in the towel, hit the pause button, come back, try it again, and obviously reroute in the meantime, because we all need to earn money, right? So you reroute, you have another kind of an interim in between kind of plan, and then come back when you are replenished. So I think
Yeah.
that's a very nice distinction to draw between just keeping on, and at the same time knowing, okay, when it's actually okay to throw in the towel. And of course, it doesn't make you a weak person when you do that. And I think that's also the myth that the legal profession puts out in terms of a lawyer has to be strong and winning all the time, and tough as nails, even the females. And of course, that's just not the reality. We have weak moments as people, and sometimes, as we are pointing out, even in the journey to get to where you are, there's definitely those moments where you're like, I'm not as strong as you think I am, or I wasn't as strong now or then as I am now. So it's nice to see that come out of your journey. Um, Something else I wanted to pick up on was you mentioned that you got pregnant at an early age. And if there's people out there that females out there that can relate, then this part is definitely for you, you know. And of course, having to step into this role now, you're probably completely, just going through the motions, and you know, fast forward to you having to relocate to do various work, to go to different for your maintenance officer work, and you also relocated for your degree. And as much as you had the support of your family, with having a child, um, you had this persecution that came from outside, about what other people thought were the best interests. And I think it's quite pertinent considering you're doing maintenance. Like, other people have their opinions on what is in the best interest of your child in your situation. And you mentioned that it was difficult having to push back against those outsider opinions. And also, generally you assume people have your best interests at heart. So these were also probably people that that cared for you, and were concerned for your well-being and your daughter's well-being. And so maybe just and this is another instance of resilience, right, where you chose, as you said, you chose stability for your child. So you had to leave her
Yes.
behind on a few occasions and do what you had to do career wise, because you needed a job, you needed to support yourself and your daughter. So you chose to leave her behind with your mom. And you said you chose that stability over uprooting her to join you in your career pursuit. So maybe just open that section up for us a little bit, to say like how you navigated people's opinions, and um, of course, the impact that that's had on your relationship with your daughter.
I would say with me, my mom had always said, she always said, don't tell people that you have a child. This is my
Yeah.
child. Because technically she was raising her. But as a mother, obviously, there are certain things you can't hide. I can't hide the
Yes.
fact that I had
Yes.
a child. So I
Yeah.
found out I was pregnant just after matric. So I took a gap year, had my baby, and when she was 5 months, I had to leave to go study. At first, it was very uneasy in terms of being in relationships because I'm young. I have
Yeah.
technically a newborn. She's 5 months. So you get to varsity and you meet all these boys. And the first thing that comes out of my mind is, I have a baby. So it was very challenging for me to get into relationships
Not a
because,
nice conversation starter.
yes, because we are all young at this point and you coming in, you saying you have a baby, and they're looking at me. I was very tiny at that time. They're
Yeah.
wondering where did the baby come from? Because you're so small. But eventually I got the hang of it, to saying, you don't just, when a person says hi to you and you're like, I have a baby. It's a conversation that you need to have with someone when you see that, okay, this person is showing interest, we're having drinks, we can go for lunch, then you bring up the topic. Because with me, it
Yeah.
was the minute you look my direction, you must not have a baby. But
Yeah.
I navigated through. I had a very good structure of friends. All of them didn't have kids, they were my age, but they were really supportive in terms of where I was. And they were teaching
Yeah.
me a few things on motherhood from their family experiences. So
Mm.
I got to learn a lot from them in terms of being a student and being a mom, because I didn't know when should I call, when should I go home. Everything was just so new to me, and
Yeah.
because I was raised in a household where I didn't party, I didn't visit friends. Now I'm living on my own. I remember
Yeah.
when I was still doing my first year, the first party they held for us as first years, I called my mom and I was like, "There's a freshers party. Can I go?" She laughed at me and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, there's a party. Can I go?" And she's like you're very far from me. Why are you asking for permission?" Like, I thought that is what I had to do because I've never gone out without her permission. And she's
Yeah.
she's like, "No, you're too old now. Whatever you do, I trust you. Just make good decisions." But it took me a few months to get over it. I would still call her to ask her to do certain things.
Mm.
And then when it comes to family, a lot of people would tell my mom that I'm gonna bring a second baby. I had to, you had to fight to say, "Oh, I'm not gonna disappoint this woman." She took this step and had so much faith in me to say, "Go to school, I'll take care of your child." Now I'm coming
Yeah.
back with a baby instead of a degree. So I had to make sure that that does not happen. I had to ensure that
Yeah.
I go to school, get my good grades, and bring home a degree and not another baby. To this day, I'm still scared of having another baby.
Oh.
So in terms of school wise, it got better with time. It wasn't for me. It wasn't an easy adjustment to say, "Oh, I gave birth, okay, bye," and then I moved on with life. It wasn't
Yeah.
easy, but I would go home every month, and I would get to see my child, spend the weekend with her. On school holidays, I would also go home to see her. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Also, it
Mm.
wasn't that good because there are certain things that I missed. I missed her first word, I missed her first step, I missed almost
Yeah.
everything about her because I was not there. So you would get video calls to say, "Oh, she took her first step today," and you're like, "Ah, I missed that." Her first
Mm.
word was "mama," but it wasn't referring to me. So
Uh,
one of those
that's a
things
big
that
one.
I wish I could have experienced that. But you
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, you didn't you're doing this for a good cause. You're not just out there living your best life. You're trying to better
Yes.
yourself. So as much as I was
Yeah.
hard on myself, I was also looking at the bigger picture at the end to say, if I was sitting at home with a child now, where would I be? Would I be looking
Mm.
for a job in retail, or would I just be sitting at home going around the house with the son? What would I be doing with my life? Because as much as we can deny it, in South Africa, it's very hard to get a job. Whether you've got a
Yeah.
qualification or not, it's very hard. Now imagine with just matric, how hard is it
Mm.
gonna be? It's gonna be like 10 times worse than what it is now. So I was also looking at it that my parents were willing. So why should I waste the opportunity if my parents were willing to do that for me?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so
And
many
then,
nice points there about the fact that your friends were understanding. I dare say it might be different now. Um, but that you had these understanding friends who sort of helped you on your motherhood journey, and you know, the fact that you redeemed the situation in that, yes, I miss this, I miss that, and I'll carry the missing her first step and all that for the rest of my life. But in the bigger scheme of things, I was doing this to carry on or to give or to leave some kind of a legacy or for a better life. And because my parents sacrificed to get me to this point, and so with all the voices from the outside, and I think the worst thing is that kind of people sort of predicting the future and thinking the worst of you. It's so important there to
yeah,
like say no. I, I'm focused, and I've come to school for this. I've come to university for this, and I'm going to come back with a degree only. And so I guess the restraint even that you had at university to just keep the relationships, not crossing the line, and eventually coming home with a degree. And of course, having your mother. I mean, I always say you must have a squad. You must have these kind of cheerleaders who will also tell you hard truths sometimes. And the fact that you had a supportive mother who was willing to sort of take your child as hers, I guess that was going to be like the occupational hazard was going to be that the child was going to call your mother, mama, right? So but of course for the greater good, right? If you look at all the
Even now.
what where it's come to now, like it's kind of like you made all those sacrifices of, um, maybe giving up certain relationships, or giving up certain hobbies or pleasures or whatever, and you missed all of her milestones, but you're here now. It's kind of like you're still a little bit wounded, but you've come to this point, and I think that's um, the fact that you kept your head, and did what you had to do. Again, being resilient, and saying no. And of course, I mean, taking that gap year was also something that you had to do. But of course,
Mm,
college was always on the cards, and so, like you said, you couldn't stay at home forever, which is a matric, and be another statistic and collect child support. Um,
yeah,
so that's really admirable. I was never in that position, so the fact, but I suppose I probably would have abandoned my studies if I was, and probably devoted all my time into taking care of the child. But I think it's so important, even with all those outside voices, that you had those people in your life that sort of helped you counter those voices. They were there to say, "Keep going. We've got you. It's not easy. It's not you're missing out on this and that, but you know, um, we're going to help you keep focused, basically." So I think that's so heartwarming to hear. Um, you also mentioned that you got a job as a legal advisor, corporate advisor in Santon. Um, and I think in our pre-meet, I brought this out that um, this part of your life ended in a way that most graduates and law students will say, "Why did you do that?" Okay, so this one didn't pan out as you thought it would, and for the younger ones, it would have been seen as like, oh my gosh, the ultimate job.
job.
I'm working in Saturn. I'm a legal advisor for a big corporate. I've arrived, right? But in your
Yeah.
case, it wasn't the ultimate job, right? So, um, and you've given your reasons, that corporate wasn't for you, and you moved on, and it didn't align with your morals and ethics. So just touch on that part of your life, and of course, what told you like this is not for you.
For me, it would have to be the environment. I'm used to, when you've been in the legal field. I was a candidate attorney, and then I went on to be a maintenance officer. So I was working mostly in assisting people, whether I'm for the defendant, or I'm for the applicant, or I'm for the state. I was just so used to working with people, and I've grown a passion for that part of the law. That when you get to corporate, you're office based. Your life is in the
Yeah.
office. It's paperwork. Nobody cares about anybody. You are on your own. As much as you're not there to make friends, but it's very ruthless in a sense that people have no compassion about anything. They're there to do the job and move on. And I'm not used to
Mm.
that kind of life. I'm not used to
Yeah.
that kind of environment. For me, it was a whole new world where get in, do your job, go home.
Mm.
So for me, it was a lot and it was overwhelming. So hence, I didn't want to even waste a single day of saying, no, I can make it work. No, I know I'm not here to make friends, but a sense of being able to go into somebody's office and saying, hey, I have an issue here, can you assist me? Or another person coming to you for assistance, they would rather mess up and deal with the consequences. So for me, it
Yeah.
was it was a lot because I didn't know how to navigate that. And when I was home, I looked at where I was. I think a week and a half in, I was like, this is what I've been doing my whole life. I've either been an attorney for the applicant or an attorney for the defendant. This has
Yeah.
always been me. I went from there to being the attorney for the state. Now I'm representing members of the public, representing
Yeah.
kids. That is what I enjoy. Always helping someone, always reading
Yeah.
different kinds of laws because I was not dealing with the same law. I would always be dealing with different types of laws to understand and find a solution to a problem. Now I'm in a setting where everything is paper. You don't even see the people that you're dealing with. You don't communicate with them. It was just a new world. And it was toxic in a way of, like I said, nobody cared about anyone. You're there for yourself. The way
Mm.
people were being addressed, how they spoke to one another, it wasn't a place I'm familiar with. It wasn't a tone I'm familiar with. And I looked at it and I said, do I want to be this person? Because remember, as much as I can be gentle, I can be respectful, I can be humble. When
Mm.
you're in a place, when you're placed in a situation where everybody's behaving a certain way, you will
Yeah.
eventually fit in at some point. It might not be
Yeah.
today, it might not be next month, but you're gonna fit in. You're gonna start becoming that person to shield yourself and protect yourself against any harm. So I looked at the situation and I asked myself, do I wanna be this person? Do I wanna
Mm.
do this to another person? Because at the end of the day, when you're moving up levels, when you're moving up ranks in the field, you're gonna be somebody's boss. And what is expected of you, the behavior that is being shown to you now, right now by your superiors. And I decided I don't want to be this person, and I cannot say I'm not going to be this person, because being in a certain place for a certain amount of time, you will adapt, you will start acting
Yeah.
out, you will start
Yeah.
living the job, you will start living the title. So for me,
Mm.
it was morally, it was something I was not going to be able to continue with. Because I remember I spoke with the ladies there who were cleaning and making tea. It wasn't nice on my part. I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy the conversation. And as a black child, you are taught to respect your elders, whether they are
Yeah.
cleaners or gardeners or what, you are taught you respect your elders. So the
Yeah.
level of respect I expected from my colleagues to the elders was not what I was seeing. So for me, it was just a matter of, this is not for me. I cannot survive in an environment like this because I know for a fact it will change me.
Yeah.
So I had to make a decision at that time to say, let me not waste their time. There could be someone who wants this opportunity and they are willing to do whatever
Mm.
it takes to get this position. I'm not willing to do that. So instead of wasting my own time and their time, let me leave.
Yeah.
And I left without a plan. It wasn't something like, oh no, I'm gonna leave now because I've got an opportunity elsewhere. Everything was just based on, do I want this? Is this who I want to be? And I said no,
Yeah.
and then I left.
That is so rich. I think that's, if there's one lesson that can be taken from this episode, is that if the job is going to change you, um, and you know who you are, then it's best to leave. Otherwise, you're going to be living. We're not meant to live as two separate people. So, and the fact that it didn't align with your values and the way you were brought up, I think that's such an insightful assessment to make, especially after 1 month. I mean, most people stay
Yeah.
in those kinds of jobs for years, and like you said, they'll say, "I'll make it work. I'll do this. I'll do that." And then without realizing, you start changing, and and then your family is usually the first to notice. You have this work persona, and then you have this home persona, and sometimes it can spill over, and you don't even know that you sometimes change for the worse. So that was really good, a good exercise, and I think it's something that candidate attorneys, law students, graduates, not to jump at the first so-called lucrative opportunity. And I say, you go to the big firms. It means the headache is going to be bigger. The problems, HR issues are going to be bigger. Everything's just going to be on a bigger scale. And are you ready for that? And of course, is it going to change the kind of the person that you are now and the reason that you started practicing law? um, Something else that I found very very insightful was, you used to touching people's lives, and now you in an office job and you don't know who the end user is. You're just going in there, sitting, clocking in the hours and clocking out, and you have no idea who your work is touching. It's just a big, cold corporate machine. And again, that's something that aspiring lawyers need to keep in mind, is that all the sacrifices you made to study and to get to where you are, like it has to make a difference in the lives of people. And if your ascension in your career is removing you from people further and further away, and you're sort of going into the heavens, and you're losing touch with, the man on the street, then for me anyway, that would be a red flag. If I can't make my legal knowledge and my practice experience relevant to the man on the street, then there's no point in having a law degree, in my opinion. So I think
Yeah.
that's really it's heartwarming in the sense that that tug of work, having worked with people before, and now I'm not doing that, and it's just that part also is not aligning with who I am, because I love to help people. And so, and then that whole thing of you rather just free the space up for somebody else who actually enjoys that. We're not demonizing the corporate space.
Yes.
It's just that it's not for everybody, and what you might think is the ultimate job might not be the ultimate job for you in terms of your value systems and the kind of practitioner that you want to be, and that you want to help people. um it might not work for you like it works for other people. So I think sometimes, and I tell students, graduates, that sometimes you have to get into that position like you did, to figure it out. So I would say try it, right? If it's not for you, leave. So I think it's
That's
because
true.
very often you get that situation where they say, no, I don't ever want to do that because I don't like it. And I'll tell them, you won't know until you try it. If you try it and you reject it, at least you're doing it on an informed basis, right? So but I must applaud the fact that you did it after 1 month. Especially with the whole articles thing now. It's like they just stay on and on and on, and they get wrecked, rather than just saying, no, this is not for me, or I'm not in a good space personally, maybe I need to get a bit stronger and then reattempt it. So I think that's the lesson there is that the top jobs might not be what you think it is, and if it's going to change who you are, then you'd rather be true to yourself and jump ship. um
Yeah.
Another point that came out in you initially sharing your story was the fact that you seem to have a plan for your progression. Okay, so it wasn't just following the crowd. You knew you wanted to get into this area, and of course into maintenance, and you followed a specific route, right? And that's something that is so lacking amongst, again, law graduates and law students, is that they don't think about, how am I going to plan my career, where do I want to go, what's it going to take to get there, where do I need to apply, what are the stepping stones, etc. So you said that you worked in different tiers, right? So first, you didn't just shoot to the top and become an advocate. You started from the bottom, you did the intern thing, and then and then the reason for your admission was to become a maintenance prosecutor. So just open up that whole planning part, that what was going through your mind when you decided that this is what you want to do, and how you plotted sort of where you're going to eventually land up.
Well, as a candidate, like I said, I'm from Rustenburg. Rustenburg is it's not a big town. It's a small town where everybody knows everyone. So
Yeah,
once you get admitted, either you work for someone or you work for yourself. So you get to Rustenburg, there is a lot of small firms everywhere. And not everybody is business minded at the end of the day. We can all have law firms, but how many of those firms are sustainable? How many of them are making an income, or how many of them are surviving? So when I was still a candidate, it would always be in my head, what do I want to do after my admission? Do I want to work for somebody else, or do I want to open my own firm? Now, when you open your own
yeah,
firm, I did my research, all these nitty gritties that come in, your audits and all those things. Everything has to come into play. There are people now that you need to hire because you're a lawyer, you're not an accountant. You need to hire an
yeah.
auditor to do your book. You need a PA, you need someone. There's always just going to be someone that you need. Do you have the funds for that? So I decided I looked up what other options do I have with this law degree, because as much as I love being in the courtroom, let me
Yeah.
explore my opportunities first before I settle and say, okay, now I'm a lawyer, I'm doing the court, I'm fine. Let me see what is
Yeah.
out there. Then I started applying for government because when you're working for government, there's a lot of things you can be doing with your LLB degree. A lot. I applied for higher position, lower position, anything that related to having a law degree, I applied for it. So when they called, I didn't even know what I was being called for because I had applied for so many things. So when I got there, they let me know that it's for a maintenance officer internship. I was like, oh, good shot. I love the family law aspect of the law. So this one, I'll
Yeah.
definitely do well in it. Now, when you get into maintenance, like I said, I enjoy being in the courtroom. That is one thing I love. Paperwork, I do it because I have to. And obviously, when you're presenting your case, it's best when you present papers that you yourself have prepared because you know what's happening.
Mm.
So when I got to being a maintenance officer, I enjoyed it because everybody comes with a different problem. This one tells you they want 500, the other one comes in and say they want 10,000. And you're like, 10 minutes ago I was dealing with 500, now I have to deal with 10,000. Now you're trying to navigate the whole situation, trying to show someone reason. And I was like, no, as much as I enjoy being a maintenance officer, I would rather do this in court. How about I become a
Mm.
maintenance prosecutor? So I went to the
Mm.
senior magistrate and I sat her down. I was like, I've been doing this thing for a while now. I love it. I enjoy it. But you've realized that most of the time when you're looking for me, I'm in court because I had requested that they grant me permission to do trials. And they said I would need to be there for at least 3 months before they can grant me that. So after 3 months, I was granted permission to do trials.
Mm.
So I was like, every time you're looking for me, I'm always in court. I'm doing trials. And I would also ask my colleagues, if you don't feel like doing trials, can I do them for you today? They were willing to let me do things because they saw that I'm very eager about the whole situation. So they didn't mind letting me run trials. So I told the senior
Mm.
magistrate, every time you're looking for me, I'm in the court. This is what I enjoy doing. Can I what can I do in order for me to become a maintenance prosecutor? Because I feel like just being a maintenance officer, it's not where I want to be. Yes, it's a learning curve for me, but I want to be up there in a sense of working because it's a different type of work. As much as yes, we do the same thing, but being in court and dealing with paperwork is different things. And she said, unfortunately, even if you're in government, you don't just because you're employed, you get to be in that position. You need to apply like everybody else. And being a maintenance prosecutor, unfortunately, goes hand in hand with the NPA. So I needed to go the NPA route. And when I look at the posts that were advertised in the DPSA circular for maintenance officers, you needed to be admitted. So I was like, okay, I need to be admitted. Let me see what I can do. Let me get my admission and then apply for the NPA so that when
Mm.
they call me for NPA, I'm already admitted. So I don't have to be dragging and saying, okay, now I did the NPA. Now I need to go do that mission. Now I need to do this. Let me get admitted while I'm applying and then we'll figure it out from there. But the goal is for me to be a prosecutor, maintenance prosecutor, because
Mm.
for some reason, I don't want to be a criminal prosecutor. So that's when I started saying, okay, now I need to do privilege because I don't think I want to write board exams anymore. So
Mm.
I'm now rethinking my life that I want to do privilege now, so that I can be an advocate and be admitted, and then I'll go back to government. How I thought
Mm.
that was gonna be possible, I don't know, but my plan was like that. I'm gonna go to privilege, get my admission, and then go back to government. And one colleague told me, in terms of Section 115, you can be admitted without doing privilege.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, for the benefit of this is that I don't want to be in private practice. So, yes, and privilege is very important. I'm not going to lie to anyone and say, take the route that I took because it's
Yeah.
quicker. Because there's certain things that I didn't know that I had to learn from the council that I was shadowing.
Mm.
Being an attorney and being an advocate is two different things. The ethics are
Yeah.
different. So
Yeah.
privilege is very important. So I then they told me about this admission. I was like, okay, and then I went to the LPC head office there. I inquired about it. They gave me information. So I was like, okay, this aligns with what I want at this moment. I'm gonna do this one. So I did my application. I got my date. I got admitted on the 18th of July, 2022. After my admission, mind you, during that process, I was still applying for other jobs because they had told me in the government, you don't just get a job. You apply like everybody else. You go through the system, you go through the process.
Mm.
So I applied for other jobs in the meantime, but I was still trying to see what I wanted to do. And then I applied, I got admitted, and then the NPA. Remember, with the NPA, you only apply once for one
Mm.
sector.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, everybody wants to be in Joburg. Everybody wants to be in Pretoria.
Mm.
Let me apply for these small rural areas
Mm.
because everybody is applying to come this side. So, what are the chances that I'll be picked?
Mm.
Because the people who are picking are not the people who are in the court that I'm in. It's people that don't know me. So it's not
Yeah.
like my name is gonna pop out to say, "Oh no, she works at the magistrate court. Let's take her." So I applied to the smaller courts in the villages there, hoping that I'd be called. Unfortunately, I did get called to write an exam, and when I got the manual, it wasn't. It was very interesting. It's like, okay, this is huge. This is interesting. I applaud prosecuting. People like studying out there. So for me, it was, oh, okay, interesting. So I have to read all this, and most of it is about criminal.
Mm.
So I wasn't impressed with the manual of the NPA because it required me to know a lot of criminal work. And when I
Mm.
went to inquire with the maintenance prosecutor, he told me that no, you don't just do the NP and then you come to maintenance. They actually throw you in at the prosecution first because he was a prosecutor for 10 years before he came to maintenance. He's
Yeah.
like, no, you actually have to do the prosecution in criminal. You're not gonna come here fresh from NPA. So you're gonna do the criminal prosecution, and then once they decide that you are ready or you've gained enough experience, then they'll bring you this side. It's not up to you.
Mm.
So whatever plan you have in your head, it's not gonna play out as is. Just know that once you are selected for the NPA, you are definitely gonna be doing criminal. So that is when I got the shock of my life because like the plan is already made. It's on the board. I've marked the
Mm.
first one. I'm on the second one. Now all this information is coming on my second point. I'm like, okay, what now? What do I do now? Because
Mm.
I'm not willing to do criminal. And I remember I spoke to my mom about it, and she was asking me, "What is so hard about criminal?" Um, when I was when I was a candidate attorney, my principal took me in, and there was a rape case. He said, "No, let's go do this bail application." The accused was 17 years old at the time, and the victim was 6. So that case made me like it defined why I don't want to do criminal anymore.
Yeah.
The accused was 17, the victim was 6 years old. So apparently, according to the mother, the 17-year-old raped the 6-year-old. Turns out the 17-year-old was not even in the area when the rape occurred. They had traveled with
Ah.
family to a different town on the Friday
Yeah.
morning. They didn't even go to school on that day. Yes, I believe the 6-year-old was raped, but it wasn't by the accused. And how do you explain that to a mother? That my client is
Yeah.
not the one that raped the child. I understand your child got raped, but it's not my client. So
Mm.
after that case, everything was just like criminal, red light. Whenever I see criminal, I see red light. So to this day, I cannot stomach anything that has to do with criminal because I still remember having to look at that mother to say that whatever you're saying is
Mm.
true. Yes, your child has gone through a traumatic experience, but it's not my client who did it. Because the fact
Mm.
I clearly stating that it's not him, he was not even around when it happened. And she was
Yeah.
so adamant and didn't even want to listen to any possibilities of when it might happen. Even when the child was describing the place where it happened, it was not describing the client's place. So for me, it was personal because remember I have a girl child. So I was
Yes.
thinking,
Yeah.
what if it was my child? Now
Mm.
somebody's telling me all these things and I'm supposed to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So that was a red light for me. So since then, I've never had the enthusiasm to be in a criminal court. I'll do a bail hearing here and there, but that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, after
Okay.
that, then I decided. Then that's when I got the job in Santon, and I was like, okay, this is not for me. The NPA is going a different route. And I was like, but then I've got this degree. Let me let me see what the world has for me.
Yeah. Okay. So much to pull out from there. Um, I think firstly, having a thought process, whatever that thought process was, you were following steps, right? So, um, and of course, the an offshoot from that is that things didn't work out the way you thought they would work out. And then having a plan, having a backup, uh, and not be, and being prepared to say no, this is not for me, even though there was no other prospect lined up. So I think that's something again that law students, graduates, CAs can take away is that you can plan and you can have the best of intentions, but sometimes it doesn't always plan out. Like going to the NPA was, it's a detour that you didn't appreciate, but of course, having dipped your toes in the water, you know that that's not what you want to do, right? So, and again, I fully agree with you. Criminal defense litigation is not something you stay in for the rest of your life, especially as a female, because you can't divorce yourself from the human aspect, in terms of the victims. And people will say, how can you defend that person? He did it. And you have all these kind of societal, you get shunned a little bit by your peers
That's
and by your family, so um I mean that whole, and I think the core of what led you on this path was just your love for family law. So you were basically open to opportunities within the field, right? And then it worked out in terms of you becoming a maintenance intern, and then of course it just progressed from there. And I think sometimes we find our strengths, or we find our niches by default. It's just that the way the career progresses, when you say, oh, I didn't plan to become good at maintenance. The same with me, I didn't plan to become good at criminal litigation, but there was no choice, or I found it by accident and I turned out and I'm really quite good at it. So that's also another, sometimes you can take a detour, come back, readjust it, and you find, hey, this is actually what I enjoy doing. So that's something that your entire progression is something that I think students can take something away from. And obviously now we are trying to round down. Otherwise we can talk forever and ever. But you know, I think just to bring it back home, or to bring it back to sort of the present day, is this reality of job applications and rejections, especially with law students, because we are like built up, we are kind of put on a pedestal in terms of, oh, you have a law degree, therefore you should be working in the court, or you should be working in a firm, or and then you find that this demoralized bunch that are sitting at home. I mean, hundreds of thousands of them, and you see some of them posting on LinkedIn, you know,
yes,
talking about, have I done law for the, was it worth it? You know, I feel so demoralized with all the rejections. I've made so many applications. It's been 2 years since I graduated and nothing has come through, but I'm persevering. So I mean, you went through the same thing, right? That
yes,
also experienced, even though it seemed like everything worked out in the end, but you also had that period where it was stressful having to apply, having a degree, your addiction, work experience, and still getting rejected. So maybe just share that part of the journey as well, in between all that struggle of applying and being rejected. how you navigated that.
Applying for when I think as a law degree holder, we have this perspective in our head that I've got a law degree. Every job that I apply for, they're gonna call me.
Yeah.
It's in our head that we are superior in a sense, not to say it in a bad way, but we feel as if I've made it and everybody would be privileged to have me working for them because of my degree. But the reality of the world is that it's not. Because how many graduates do we have now? We've got a lot of law graduates.
Mm.
And you always constantly have to say what makes you different, what makes you the best candidate for this position.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I left in Santon, I was looking for a job before I decided I'm going to go into practice. I would send about 200 to 200 to 250 emails a day, and I wouldn't get feedback. And I was like, I've got the experience, I've got the degree. Why am I not being called? Some they would
Mm.
send you rejection letters, others won't even bother. You just give up eventually to say that it's been over a month now. I haven't heard from these
Mm.
people, so I'm just gonna let them be. It's very draining, and especially if you don't have a support system. Because
Yeah.
fortunately for me, my mom has always been my biggest supporter and my sister. So I
Mm.
was able to still be comfortable and still maintain to live at my own flat in Pretoria at that time.
Yeah.
Because my mom had said, if you come back home, you're gonna be depressed
Yeah.
because now you used to now living on your own. You used to living this life in Pretoria on your own. Now you wanna come back home with no job, and as much as you don't, you say you don't care what people say, but you'll be back home doing nothing. It's gonna affect you at some point. And you're in Pretoria. There are more opportunities that side than you coming back to Rustenburg. So she felt it was better for me to stay this side and try and see what I can get than coming home and being depressed.
Mm.
So a support system is very important because if you're doing all this on your own, it's gonna take a toll on you. There were days where I
Yeah.
just didn't want to speak to anyone. I didn't want to even apply for jobs. I just wanted to just be there. I just wanted to exist.
Mm.
For me, I was able to do that because I knew mom is there. Now imagine
Yeah.
if you are everybody's looking up on you because we've taken you to school. Now you're a law graduate. Do something for us. The
Yeah.
pressure is on you now that you need to start working because we're all waiting for you to take care of us now. We've taken care of you
Yeah.
for these past few years. It's your turn.
Yeah.
So you can imagine a person who's in that situation where they don't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, today I don't feel like applying for jobs. Today I just feel like sitting here binging on Netflix and eating junk food." So the aspect of it is that you need a supportive system, and we need to plan our lives. In all honesty, as much as our plans don't always work out as we want them to be, but you need to have a plan A and a plan B in life to say that if this
Mm-hmm.
fails, at least I can do this. Because when
Yeah.
my plan A failed, when my plan B failed, now I was shocked. It was the shock of my life that, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
For a child, I need to support. As much as my mom is there, in my head, I still know that I've got a child. I need to support this
Yes.
child. So
Yeah.
the shock of it all is that I'm here. I don't have a job. My end of the month, the landlord wants their rent. They don't care whether you've got a job or not. Either you pay your rent or you vacate their premises. So it was a tricky situation for me. So that's what I'm saying. With other people, you have to consider: do you have the support system to help you through? Because you can't just say, "Oh no, I don't have a job. It's okay. I'll figure it out." Not all of us can figure it
Mm.
out.
Yeah.
So it's very depressing, especially when you get the we'll get to inform you. If I can show the people the amount of emails I got to get to inform you, and you feel like calling them and say, "Why are you regretting? Like, give me the job and stop regretting." I promise you, I'm the best that you can have. It's unfortunate that we can't do some of those things, but sometimes I feel like we could just call and say, "Please don't regret. Let me show you," and then you'll regret after I'm there. But it's one of those life challenges that you just accept. It happened. So you need a very good support structure. It can be family or friends. Fortunate for me, I've got both because
Mm.
my whole family is in Rustenburg. So in Pretoria, I've got friends, and I've got friends that tend to be sisters. So I knew that
Mm.
if I'm failing, there's a support that you need someone physically here for you to be able to
Yeah.
cope. I can't always go to Rustenburg to say I need a hug. I had those friends that I can call to say, you know what, I don't need money, I don't need you to give me advice. I just need you to be here. I had those kind
Yeah.
of friends that would come up for me and just be there because they knew what I was going through.
Mm.
You can be I forgot the saying. It says no man is an island.
Mm.
So you can expect to move up and do better and be someone in life by being on your own. You need the assistance of others. It may be financially, it may be emotionally, but you need the assistance of others to grow because someone might teach you something not even related to your career, but about life that you can use
Mm.
in different aspects of your life. You can use it in your career, you can use it in your personal life, but that little advice can carry you through and you will be able to survive what you thought you would not be able to.
Yeah. I mean, again, that whole thing about a support structure, and pops up, and I think it's no more. It's more obvious when you don't have any distractions, or you don't have nothing is working out. So you start looking around for people. It's suddenly the noise. The noise is, everything is quiet because nothing is working out, and so you start looking outward. And I think that's when maybe we start to appreciate our family more and our friends more. When we experience things like this. And again, it's another takeaway for students, graduates: get your squad. Okay, and get those people that will sort of love you no matter what happens. That the love is unconditional, and even if they scold you, it's that at the end of the day they've got your best interests at heart and they want you to move forward. So thank you for sharing that part. So now we are landing the plane. So I asked you in your sort of interview form if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring lawyers. Looking back. Okay, so looking back to where you are and fast forwarding to where you are now, what's one piece of advice you could give them that will just carry them through to sort of where they want to land up in terms of their career?
I think I said that it gets easier with time.
Hmm.
As much as we fight it through, we fight and sometimes you feel like giving up. Sometimes you're like, why is things not working for me? Sometimes it's not even a matter of jealousy. You'll be looking at your friend and you're like, my friend has made it through everything that they
Yeah.
wanted. They're coming, but I'm not getting
Hmm.
anything. And you're not looking at it at a point of jealousy to say, why them? You're like, how are they getting it? And they give you these tips, but it you're like, I'm doing that, but I'm still not persevering. What's happening? When I say
Hmm.
it gets easier with time, is that at some point you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to be
Yeah.
humble. You need to take a step back and breathe and say, you know what? I've given this my all. I'm leaving it all up to God at this point. God knows your heart.
Hmm.
God knows the hard work that you've put through in order for you to be where you are. I've went through all these challenges, but in the end, I sat down. I was like, you know what? I am tired. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of trying to find my place in this field.
Hmm.
Let me do what I know I can do. And since then, I've been doing what I know what is best for me. I've been doing family law, and I can't say I'm striving, but it looks good. It looks promising.
Hmm.
I'm no
Hmm.
longer running. I'm no longer
Hmm.
running towards the end goal. I'm just walking towards the end goal. I'm working towards the end goal. I'm planning my life accordingly to say, this is my next move, this is my next phase, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm more calmer now. I'm no
Hmm.
longer, I can't say I'm no longer eager, but I'm just
Yeah.
calmer of the whole situation. I'm ready. Whatever comes my way, I'm not ready to fight it like, oh, this is coming. This is a challenge. I need to fight it. I'm like, okay, this is a challenge. What do I need to do? I sit down, I
Hmm.
analyze the situation, I look at possible solutions to my situation. I'm like, okay, I think if I do this, it will be better for me. I no longer ask God, why me?
Yeah.
Yesterday was my birthday, by the way. So I was having a
Oh.
conversation with this one guy, and he was saying all these powerful things, and I looked at him, and he's like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I was like, "Why me? Why are you giving me all these concrete and solid advice?" And he said to me, "Never ask that again in your life. Never ask why
Mm,
me. Always say I receive it and accept. If it's hard, you accept it. If it's good, you receive it. Never ask why
mm,
me." And I slept so peacefully because of those words. I realized that I don't have to doubt. I always just have to say, it's my turn now. Let me deal with it. If it's good, let me
mm,
deal with it. If it's bad, I'll figure it out. But I
mm,
have learned to approach situations in a calmer way, in a way that will allow me to think before I react or before I act. So, if in all honesty, as time goes by, everything just gets easier. You learn how to navigate your problems. You learn how to navigate your emotions. You learn how to navigate your life. And you learn how to navigate the people around you, whether it's friends, it's family, it's colleagues. You now are able to differentiate how you approach situations, how you approach people.
mm. Wow, that's a nice place to land the plane and switch it off. And thank you for your time
Thank you for
and
having me.
your insights. I think, I haven't walked back on those words I said in our pre-meet that it's going to be a very meaty and I think very meaty episode, and people are probably going to listen to it over and over. So thank you for that and for sharing your journey. 'Cause I think we come to a point in our lives where we realize that our journeys aren't for ourselves, and so whatever you've gone through, whatever I've gone through, we make that a resource for other people to learn from. So um, I'm grateful that I was able to tap into that. And listeners, you can connect with Jennifer on LinkedIn. I think that's where you're most active.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's under Advocate K Matavane. Um, and nice content from what I've seen briefly, and lots of followers. So please follow her, and I'm sure you'll continue to be inspired as you follow her journey because she's very real and doesn't just post about the good stuff. And I'm sure you'll benefit from connecting with her and adding her to your network. So thank you for listening, and I hope you go back and listen over and over because there are many points that I could have continued, you know, bringing out and getting her insight on. And I think maybe if you also do that, if you listen and want to ask her some questions, I'm sure she'd be responsive to you as well. So thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, listeners. And I hope that this episode is very inspirational.